Welcome to the beast, I unleash, I'm a motherfucking beast. You feel it's over soon, too many risks to take, just let us see what we'll be finding.
What's up, guys? So we are doing a voiceover for the Boyfriend Does My Booty workout glute day for day 13 of the Kickstart trainer. So Matt is actually going to do this voiceover with me.
What's up, guys?
So he's going to give his perspective on what his experience with these exercises were, because it was his first time doing a lot of these movements. So
all of them.
So if any of you guys are beginners, this will definitely help you out a lot, getting his perspective on it as well. So the first movement we did was a hip abductor machine. We did this as kind of like a glute activation movement. So 3 sets of 20 was just to get the glutes firing, get them going before we got into our quote-unquote compound movements, the hip thrust and the sumo squat. So with this, you want to make sure that you're thinking about squeezing your glutes together instead of just pushing the pads apart to fire that outer glute, the hip abductor, the side of your butt that helps your legs spread apart like you do in a squat.
One thing I would suggest for people just starting out on this exercise that have never done it, 2 tips that Marissa gave me. One, I had my hands on my butt practically the entire time, feeling it contracting. And then I also leaned forward just a little bit, as you'll see in the clips.
So when you lean forward a little bit more, you're hinging more at your hips. The more your hips are hinged, the more your glutes are stretched. So when you push your legs out with a degree of hip hinge, it's going to actually contract the muscle fibers a little bit better than if you're sitting just straight up or even leaning back.
Hands on the butt, more of just a mental thing to comfort you, but then obviously
to comfort you as a cue.
Yeah, as a mental cue, but leaning forward changes the mechanics and how it feels and how hard you can contract.
Awesome. So the next exercise we did was our first heavy movement, a barbell hip thrust with a drop set on the last set. So we went a little crazy and we did a double drop set on the last set just for fun. So we did sets of 15. Started with 135, moved up to 155, then on the final set we actually got up to 185. And then for the drop set, we did 15 with 185, finished that, dropped the 25s off, so we did another set to failure with 135, and then we grabbed an 80-pound easy bar and did a drop set with that, so just doing another set until failure after that with no rest between. And guys, I actually did the double drop set to demonstrate what the hip thrust would look like if you're not using a true barbell with plates, because not everyone is strong enough to do 135 yet, and that's totally okay. So how you're going to use the easy bar is a lot of times they'll be like flat bottoms, and so you can stand them up sideways next to you and lower the bar onto you. But if you have a partner, they can just put the bar on your hips as well. So either way works. This way you can do hip thrusts even if you're not strong enough to do 135 yet. So cues for the hip thrust, you want to make sure you're pushing through your heels. You have a 90-degree angle at the knee, and at the top your torso is flat and you're squeezing your glutes hard, tucking your chin down and pushing your hips not only up towards the ceiling but forward as you squeeze your glutes.
The big tip that helped me was the 90-degree angle of the bottom portion of your leg, as well as I was doing it with the band around my legs, I believe.
Yeah.
And as I was coming up and contracting, I would push my legs out and resist against the band, and that also helped with the contraction.
Yeah, so that helped him contract his glutes better and feel it more in his butt, because when you're pushing out against the band, you're not only engaging the gluteus maximus, but you're engaging the gluteus medius, the side butt, when you're abducting your legs like we talked about with the hip abductor machine. Next up, we did a Smith machine sumo squat, 3 sets of 15 here. Cues for the sumo squat: you want to make sure you're getting as large of a degree of hip hinge as possible, just like we were talking about for the abductor machine. So bending at the waist, not only at the knee for this squat. Get nice and low, because the lower you are, the more your glutes are going to stretch. With the Smith machine, it's very controlled, so you can really go lower and feel the stretch in a more controlled fashion than you would with a barbell squat. Then when you're coming up, I like to think about spreading the floor apart with my heels. So not only pushing down into the ground, but pushing the ground apart. So this is the same cue as a sumo deadlift, and it definitely helps with contracting your glutes because as your feet are pushing out, this allows you to squeeze your glutes together at the top more forcefully. So like as you come up from the sumo squat, you want to think about not only standing up from the squat, but you should think about hip thrusting forward. So at the bottom of the squat, your hips are back behind you, and then when you get to the top, you want them to be parallel with the rest of your body. So you can think about this as like a standing hip thrust. And if you're shoving your hips forward and squeezing your glutes by doing that, you're practicing hip extension just like a hip thrust, and you're getting a better contraction in your glutes because you're mindfully extending your hips.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, all those things you're describing, it's very easy to see.
Yeah, what we're doing.
Me doing it.
Yeah. Next up, we did a Smith machine glute kickback. So this killed the guys. So with this, it's a little bit tricky because the bar can sometimes hit the locks and get locked in as you're kicking up. But the key to avoid that is, first of all, to set up so that your foot is angled against which way it would push the locks to lock in. And second of all, to keep your feet stiff and push slowly. If you're kicking the bar up as fast as you can and kind of losing control on the way up or the way down, then that's going to just have you lose control of what the bar's locks are doing as well. So if you're kicking up slowly, you're not only getting a better contraction, but you're also controlling the bar and preventing that from happening. So when I set up, I like to just be on all fours, down on my elbows. I suggest having a pad below your knees so that it's comfortable. And then you're just going to have the bar slightly behind you, get your heel on the bar, and then kick up and extend your leg as high as you can, squeezing your glute at the top, just like you would with a kickback on the cables.
Like Marissa said, the one tip that really helped me was keeping just your heels on the bar. You'll see in the clips when I first started out, the bar was in the middle of my foot, and I felt a lot more hamstring activation, which is not what we want in this exercise. So I moved my foot a little bit forward, only kept the heel on it, and I was just able to contract a lot better. And then, like she said, the slower down you go, the better, so you can just keep the tension on the glutes the entire time.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people saying this this exercise is very tricky and they can't figure it out. You can do it on the floor, you can do it on the bench, depending on what kind of Smith machine you have. But guys, if Matt could do it, you guys can do it. Smith machine glute kickbacks. I don't want to hear any more excuses from girls not being able to do this exercise.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah. Next up, we moved on to a superset of cable glute kickback, superset with single leg dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. This is the exact same superset that we did on the previous glute day, where I was showing you guys different substitute exercises that guys could do for the glute days. So you can apply those substitute exercises to this workout if you're a guy and you really don't want to be doing these exercises, but I mean, you don't really have an excuse anymore. But,
Do it.
But with the cable glute kickback, we're doing 12 per leg here. You want to strap something, either the single arm handle or whatever kickback attachment your gym has, around your ankle as tight as you can. You're holding on to the poles in front of you, and you're bending at the waist, hinging at the hips again so that your torso is bent almost parallel to the floor. And then you are leading with your knee, but keeping your leg as long as you possibly can. So when you're kicking, you're thinking of your leg as one big sort of pendulum, and you're bringing your heel up at the top and driving with the knee, but bringing the whole leg up and kicking as far back as you possibly can, as well as up towards the ceiling. And make sure you try to squeeze your glute at the top and really control the way back, because you can get a lot more tension on the glutes this way as well.
So as you'll see in the clips, my second set was significantly better than my first one in terms of form, and there are a couple reasons why. As someone who has never done a glute kickback before, I would have to say as soon as I strapped in, it was very awkward. I'd say you're not used to having tension on your ankle pulled in that direction, and you'll notice in the first set, the way I was pulling back, it was almost as if I was trying to take the cable and hamstring curl it, and I definitely felt that. And the two ways I changed that, like Marissa pointed out, I just picture my one leg being a pendulum, and I'm hinging from the hips. and then trying to keep my leg as straight as possible, because I felt, as my first time ever doing it, I naturally kind of wanted to hamstring curl it a little bit, and I felt it way more in my glutes after I changed those two things.
Yeah, and you can see in the first set his knee was bending a lot, in the second set his leg was pretty much almost straight, slight bend in the knee, but the knee wasn't bending. And then the single leg dumbbell Romanian deadlift, we've done this one before as well. Hold on to something. This doesn't have to be a move, all about balance, guys. Just hold on to something so that you can get the stretch in the hamstring and the glutes. Make sure you're hinging at the hips, pushing your hips back as far as you can, kicking the back leg up a little bit so you get a better stretch in that working leg, and initiate from the hamstring and the glute by, I like to think about digging my heel into the floor as I'm starting to come up, instead of thinking about just standing up. I think about driving my heel into the floor and contracting the muscle to initiate me moving back up rather than the other way around. And at the top, I like to just think about squeezing my hamstring and squeezing my glute as much as I can, and then keeping the tension as I come back down.
So this was the only exercise that wasn't foreign to me on this workout today. I love doing RDLs on leg day. The one key point that Marissa already pointed out is focusing on pushing your hips back on the way down. I see a lot of beginners, they think they just need to lean forward or fall forward with their back. It doesn't really stretch out your hamstrings fully.
Yeah, and basically with a Romanian deadlift, any variation of it, if you don't feel like you wouldn't fall backwards onto your ass if you didn't have a weight in front of you, then you're not doing it right. You're not pushing your hips far back enough. So you should really feel like you're jamming your hips as far back as you can so that you would fall over if you didn't have weight in front of you. So that weight is there to counterbalance that. Next up, we moved on to a cable frog walk with a drop set to body weight on the final set. So cable frog walks, we figured out that the best way to get the most tension on the glutes for these was to, one, have a band above the knee, but I was the only one that was doing that, and two, to take big, slow steps. So when you're walking back and forth, the program says 20 steps, so we did 5 back, 5 forward, and then repeated that one more time for a total of 20 steps. We took very big, slow steps, trying to keep ourselves as low as possible in the squat as we're walking with the frog walks, really pushing out of the heel with every single step. So that really helped me, and also kind of like tilting my body side to side as I stepped helped me engage my glutes as well. What about you?
The frog walk was definitely the most fun exercise to me. It took me a while to figure it out, but when I started taking bigger steps, and also you'll notice I kind of twisted out a little bit. I opened up my hips on the steps backwards, at least. That definitely helped me feel it in my butt a lot more.
And that goes back to the abduction. So the side of your butt helps with your legs spreading apart. So if you're stepping out and opening up as you step back with these cable frog walks or stepping forward, it will help engage more glute. And then on the drop set to body weight on the final set, just put the cable down and do as many as you can, either with a band or without, or do it with a band and then take the band off and keep going. Either way, your legs are gonna die. It was so hard. We were all just like, literally our legs were burning so bad when we were doing the drop set. So that was the cable frog walk. Lastly, we did a banded glute bridge.
This was terrible.
3 sets of 50 reps, and I also show right here on the screen, you'll see the alternative exercise. You can do frog pumps. So frog pumps are when your heels are pressed together and you're doing a hip thrust from the ground that way. And when you're doing that, you want to just think about pushing your heels together as hard as you can and thrusting your hips up while doing that. It's going to work your adductors a little bit too. But you have the choice between these two, but if you want to add weight, then I suggest doing the banded glute bridge. So I kept the band above my knees, 3 sets of 50 reps. We used a 30-pound barbell, and it was absolutely killer. Cues for this, you want to think about your shoulders pressing into the ground behind you, tucking your chin, and really pushing out of your heels and extending your hips as far up as you can towards the ceiling with every single rep, and squeezing your glutes hard at the top of every single rep. What do you have to say about these?
By far the hardest finisher to a workout ever.
It was horrible and amazing.
If you're a beginner to training glutes like I am, it does not matter how much weight you do, because I have never contracted my glutes 50 times in a row, period. even to body weight. So these, you'll see in the video, this 30-pound barbell was killing me. Pretty much the same tips here as the regular hip thrust. The two things that helped me, I kept my knees, the bottom portion of my leg perpendicular to the ground, and as I squeezed up, not only was I pushing my heels out to try and spread apart the ground, I was also pushing my knees, I was also pushing my quads against the resistance band to increase my contraction even more. And these are so painful, I don't have to say anything else. You'll see my face in the video. It's terrible.
Yeah. So that was the voiceover for the glute day. I hope you guys enjoyed Matt being a part of this voiceover as well. Give the video a thumbs up for him trucking through this glute workout with me. He was such a trooper, made it through the entire thing, did all the sets, all the reps, and I cannot wait to hear about how sore his cheeks are tomorrow morning.
We finished this workout about 2 hours ago, and as I'm sitting down right now, I am in a lot of pain.
Yeah, so give the video a thumbs up for Matt. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys tomorrow for the next rest day video before we start week 3. So have a great glute day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Peace.
Defeated.
Too many risks to take. Just let